Thank you so much for all of you joining from across the globe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know it's different time zones for all of you. Thank you so much for joining in today. As an organization, DigitalOcean always believes that the community is larger than just us. That is what we believe in every day. And we want our communities to stay safe, stay indoors during these uncertain times, and at the same time, ensure that our developer community continues to learn and upskill, which is why we brought you this online meetup. I'm Cynthia. I manage community engagement for DigitalOcean. And today's topic is going to be on securing and hardening your Kubernetes cluster. I'm happy to be your host for today's webinar. We have two speakers joining us from the developer ecosystem. They will walk you through on how you can set up your Kubernetes cluster and also ensure that they are secure. Let me quickly move on to the speakers for today. Arvin is a tech evangelist. He comes with 8 years of software development experience, and he's a backend developer. He is currently with Elastic as a developer advocate, and he manages developer relations for India as a market. Arvin's interest lies in machine learning, search, Internet of Things technology, and so on and so forth. Saurabh joins us from DigitalOcean. He's the senior lead developer advocate for DO. He comes with a decade of experience in the software industry. Saurabh, you would have seen him in a number of meetups and conferences as speakers. He's also part of the CNCF Speakers Bureau. His interest lies in open source, DevOps, containers, and Kubernetes. Before we move on to the session, there are a few housekeeping rules that I wanted to share with all of you. We kindly request you to please keep your microphones on mute so that there are no disruptions to the webinar. Also, all of us are taking this from home in these trying times, so please bear with us when it comes to network and bandwidth challenges. In case during the session, if your audio or video stops or stutters, we kindly request you to rejoin the GoToWebinar portal. Otherwise, also we're recording the session, so by early next week, we should be able to share the recording of this webinar with all of you. During the session, the speakers will take a pause and ask you if you have any questions that you may have in their particular session. Otherwise, we have a 10-minute to 15-minute Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please feel free, use the chat window on the GoToWebinar portal and start typing in your questions. I will monitor it for you and share it with the speakers for them to answer them. Quickly, before we move on to the speakers, here's the agenda. Saurabh will start the session on why we need to secure the Kubernetes cluster. He will cover some of the recent known vulnerabilities in the ecosystem and also talk about potential risks and how you can address them. And then we will move on to Arvind. He will talk about SIM and its benefits, which is security, information, and event management, after which we will go on to the Q&A session. Without further ado, I'll move on to Saurabh. Saurabh, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Cynthia, for that introduction. I guess my screen is visible, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You will have to, yeah.
Can you see the screen now?
No.
No, ideally it should be, or do you need to share that control?
Let me try that for you. Try now.
Yeah, I think now it should work.
Yep. Thank you, Saurabh. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Sorry for that, guys. Thanks a lot for joining for this webinar, taking out your precious time during this period. And me, Arvin, and Cynthia will try to ensure that next 1 hour or so, whatever time we spend that you have taken out after a busy schedule, is something useful for you. The whole focus for this webinar or meetup is we are going to talk about Kubernetes security and SIEM best practices. And from my side, as a developer advocate, I'll just hope that you have some takeaways from this session. So if that be it, it would be a fruitful session for me. So just to, before I start, let me give you a brief introduction about myself. Okay, so doesn't look like this is working. Cynthia, can you just check the controls because not able
Yep.
to move the slides.
It is with you, Saurabh. So just try clicking on the slide. I've changed the presenter to you.
Yeah, because
You are both organizer and presenter.
sure, just let me check. Sorry guys for that, but yeah, now I see it's working. Yeah,
Yeah. Works now.
this I think I need to keep that on along the window side, but that's fine. Okay. Cool. I think some issue because this is a new tool for us, so even I'm a bit not too hands-on on this one. We normally use Zoom for our calls, but yeah, just as Cynthia introduced, I'm Saurabh. I come with around like 10 plus years of experience into cloud and DevOps domain. Have worked with startups in the past, couple of names like Flipkart, Alton Calsoft, and last 1 year, I have been with DigitalOcean as a senior developer advocate. So just a brief intro about myself, and let's now talk about the agenda that I'm going to talk for next couple of minutes. So that's more around the Kubernetes security, right? So nowadays the focus is adopting Kubernetes as a cluster orchestrator tool, as a container orchestrator tool in the industry. Everyone wants to use or have been using them. Some people are still into new phases where they're exploring. People have moved to the production workloads on Kubernetes and they're running full time, which is all good. But then definitely, as the code goes, with greater power come greater responsibilities. Are we sure that whatever we are running on Kubernetes is safe and secure? And that brings me to my topic. We have recently, as recent as 2019, discovered some of the vulnerabilities in Kubernetes. So what are some of the best practices we should follow or we tend to follow while implementing a Kubernetes cluster? I'll share a list of common tools that are being used in the industry, not coming from me. This is coming from you people who are using these tools. They suggested me. And as a bonus, we will also talk brief about DigitalOcean Kubernetes Service, which is a managed offering from DigitalOcean. So that's a bonus because if time permits, don't want to overboard time for a win. Yeah. So yeah, we start. So that slide for people who are already from a DevSecOps background or people who are already doing a lot of stuff and research around Kubernetes security or security in general. So just to tell you that you people are the masters. I'm a knave. I'm just starting there. Just wanting to learn a couple of things from you people. But so yeah, in case you already know about Kubernetes security, kindly bear with me. I might have my different impression about Kubernetes, but yeah, for people who don't know about Kubernetes or security in general, let's start. I'm not sure if I can remove this because then the control goes away. I cannot move that, but yeah. So why, right? Everyone is using Kubernetes. No one is talking about whether it's secure or not. If there is a problem with Kubernetes, do we know about it or not? So I'm here to talk some of the vulnerabilities that we have discussed over last year or maybe last couple of years. And this not only applies to Kubernetes as a tool, but the entire ecosystem. So be it dependencies or tools like Istio or Prometheus or other things that you might be using, they are open to vulnerabilities. People, or in general, what we call them as attackers or hackers, can use them or misuse those things. So let's just quickly talk about some of the common vulnerabilities that we have found over the last couple of years. So this was just a report I saw from NewsStack, which is an online forum for developers and cloud people. So this is a report from 2019, and this talks about some of the top challenges Kubernetes users in the industry are facing. And if you see, most of the respondents, as many as 46% of them have responded as security being the biggest challenge. So if we just talk about it, what it literally turns into numbers is around 50% of the respondents feel that security is a big threat when they're implementing a solution like Kubernetes or containers, which is a big thing, right? So at least people are aware of that. Okay, so what are some of the recent vulnerabilities that have been found? And when you see, I think there is a security term we use for that is CVE. So basically common vulnerabilities and exposure is what we call. So there is a CVE 2018 1002 105. And this is one of the biggest vulnerabilities that have been discovered in Kubernetes. And they have their own ratings for CVE out of 10. So this was given 9.8, which is like a very high severity score. So out of 10, 9.8. Right? So basically what happens is before this vulnerability, or if you have a cluster that uses an old Kubernetes version with this vulnerability, an outsider can have unauthorized access to your platform and gain full admin privileges and then do whatever he wants. And that's why it has been given a high severity score. Talking about the next, it was discovered in 2019. It's like 1002, 101. This was a flaw in basically Kubernetes kubectl command. So if compromised, it cannot give attacker a power to write files to any path of the user's machine and then like copy, delete, and make changes to those, right? So definitely not as severe as the previous one, but then yeah, a big issue over there. Okay, I can check back the slide. So I need to come here back. Okay, so this is something I have to do on and off, no issues. The next one, 2019 112.253. It was also known as Kubernetes billion attack vulnerability. This gives you the power of DDoS attacks on Kubernetes API server just by uploading a malicious YAML file. So someone who knows how to write a YAML file and knows how to use a DDoS attack and some basic things about your cluster, some knowledge, he can definitely upload that file and gain access and then definitely run a DDoS on your machine. Next was something which has been found in Kubernetes API. So this was again a high severity thing. Even after implementing RBAC, people were able to read, modify, or delete cluster-wide resources, right? So basically, when you use an RBAC is basically a role-based access control. So basically, to block action or access to certain group of users, right, or teams. So just setting them to a certain specific namespaces. But even despite that, people can access resources across the board. So this was again a severe vulnerability that has been discovered. So this was mostly around Kubernetes. Okay, need to go back and do that. The one at the last that I mentioned here, that is something that has been discovered in Istio, which is the most popular tool right now, which I see gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people using Istio, right, for service mesh and other implementations for Kubernetes. So these are vulnerabilities that have been discovered in Istio. And basically, and there was another which was found in OCI Docker engine that Docker uses, right? So underlying Kubernetes also uses Docker. So any vulnerability in Docker is directly going to impact Kubernetes as a system. So don't want to talk too much about the vulnerabilities and give you too much of like fear of using Kubernetes, but yeah, there are ways how to come out of these vulnerabilities, how to safeguard your cluster. The focus should be on that. So after seeing those vulnerabilities, the first thought that comes to your mind is, what are the risks and are you at risk? That's the main thing, right? These are the vulnerabilities that have been discovered. There could be many more which are still not explored, which might come up later, right? So of the known ones, are you still at one of the risk from them? Okay, so just need to remove this. So yes, if you are still using one of the older versions, as old as 1.9.x, anything before that, stop using it immediately. Update to one of the latest patched versions. The CV that we talked about, 11247, has been fixed in Kubernetes latest versions as 11.3, 13, 14, and 1.5, right? So upgrade accordingly. And for Istio, again, upgrades have been made to the latest Istio deployments. So in case you are using Istio, ensure that you are using the latest patched version and the vulnerability have been patched in there. So this was all about vulnerabilities which we are known and how to protect yourself from them. But in general, what are some of the best practices that we should follow while implementing Kubernetes? Or does Kubernetes comes with some of parameters or resources that we can use to safeguard our cluster? Okay. Yeah, so when we're talking about best practices while designing a Kubernetes cluster, so this is something which I think should be a key takeaway for you. What are some of the best practices designed while designing a Kubernetes cluster, right? So what happens by default is Kubernetes comes with anonymous authentication on. It's enabled, right? So you have to disable anonymous authentication using this flag. Anonymous auth equals to false. So that is one of the starting points. Disable all unauthenticated access to your API server. API server being the key to your cluster, all unsolicited access should be blocked. Then Kubernetes gives you the option of admission controllers. So basically, admission controllers are more like policies which you can define to safeguard and check rules around them, right? So basically a checkpost. So configure admission controllers around your Kubernetes cluster and ensure they are in place. So a lot of admission controllers are available based on your need and use cases. You should have them in place. Then yeah, there is an RBAC, which is role-based access control, right? So not everyone should have similar accesses to the Kubernetes cluster. Based on your team, based on the individuals, like IAM policies, you should define your RBAC and have limited accesses. So basically someone from a DevOps team might have an admin access to across all the resources, right? But need not be applied same for someone from a backend team or a data team. Data team should have access only to their resources and should not be able to even view other resources if needed. So definitely RBAC plays important role over there. Disable public access to your cluster. By default, it goes, right? Public access to your Kubernetes cluster is an open key to a hacker. So disable public accesses to your cluster. One way to do it is you can have a jump server or a machine in between and use that. Another important point is working on your workloads. So segregate sensitive workloads. So all important applications should be replying on different clusters, right? Cluster should not be shared between like an application which is kind of too heavy and has sensitive data. And also that cluster includes some other backend processes. So you should need to separate that based on your process and your architecture. Design your Kubernetes cluster in such a way that you have important workloads, sensitive workloads running on different clusters, and non-important workloads running on another cluster, or maybe a node. Use network policies, right? So basically by default, a container or a pod is open to all kind of communication. So you need to block that. And how do you do that is using network policies. So you can define network policies or which provide basically a firewall or check rules to interpod communication. You can define rules to different pods and ensure whether they can have interpod communication or public communication outside the world. So make sure that you use network policies effectively. Now, Kubernetes by default has nodes, right? So how do you harden your node security? So there are a couple of ways to harden your node security also. One way is ensuring that your host is secure and configured correctly. Blocking all unnecessary ports, control network access to sensitive ports, right? Everything else should be blocked. And then definitely minimize administrative access to Kubernetes nodes. Not everyone should be able to log in or SSH into your Kubernetes nodes. Another option that Kubernetes gives you out of the box is PSPs, the pod security policies, to prevent risky containers or pods from being used. So make sure that you have pod security policies into place and use them effectively. Next one is again not along the lines of Kubernetes, but more from a container perspective. So as I mentioned that Kubernetes underlying use Docker, right? And when you're using Docker or containers, ensure that you only use trusted images. Most of the times we use public images from someone and we are not sure because it's a trusted image or not. So there are a lot of third-party tools, which I'm going to share later, available to scan and mark images as trusted, right? So only use those images which have been which are kind of getting passed by your security checks. So that this basically applies to Docker in general or container systems in general, but is a part of Kubernetes best practices. And last but not the least, upgrade to the latest Kubernetes version. So as I mentioned, the old versions already have flaws with them. They have been identified and new patches have been released with latest versions. So kindly ensure that you are learning the latest patched version of Kubernetes and you're not still following one of the old versions, which are still open to security flaws. Kubernetes also gives you the option of using quotas, right? Limits on CPU memory. So do resource isolation. That's another way of securing your cluster. Use a bastion host. That again follows from the principle of not allowing public access to your cluster. So as I said, use a bastion host or a jump server in between. No direct access to your Kubernetes cluster or nodes. Secure your CI/CD pipelines. So definitely, how does Kubernetes comes into picture? Post production, right? Your production or non-prod workloads are running on Kubernetes. How are they triggered? If you have implemented a DevOps automated pipeline, most of the times people are using things like Jenkins, CI/CD, Circle CI, and other CI/CD pipelines, right? So kindly ensure that your CI/CD pipelines are also secure. There are tools which you can implement for these security things. And audit logs. So by default, it goes right. Audit logs are available with Kubernetes, but you need to turn them on. You need to enable them and do monitor them from time to time to see any kind of unsolicited activities on your cluster or server. So turn on your audit logs and keep on monitoring them on a regular basis. So those were some of the best practices that people around the industry, security researchers have suggested to make your Kubernetes cluster in general more secure and protect them from the outside world, right? So in terms of best practices, if you follow them, this will definitely give you a much more robust and a secure cluster. And definitely, I'll not say it's 100% secure from outside world in terms of attacks, but yeah, let's vulnerable now. Because as I said, there are still some vulnerabilities which might not have been discovered, right? But till the time, the ones that we know about, if you just implement these services or these resources, I think you are on the safer side. Just at this point of time, I would like to take a break and check with my colleague Cynthia in case we have some questions from any of you.
Hey, Saurabh. Hold on, I'm just pulling up a couple of questions that came. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, Cynthia, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. One of the questions is, can you share some tools for securing Kubernetes? I think you've already covered that as part of your
yeah,
slide,
so
didn't you?
going forward, we will be sharing some of the best tools which are available in the industry for Kubernetes security in general. So I'll be sharing that in next slide.
Awesome. That was one. And the other one was, does upgrading to the latest Kubernetes version ensures that our cluster is now safe?
Okay, I think that's a pretty good question. Answered that in my slides, but then yes, again want to reiterate that upgrading to a latest version saves you from all the known vulnerabilities that we are aware of. There are still unknown vulnerabilities which we have not yet discovered. So once we came up to know about those new vulnerabilities, you might have new patches available. But if you upgrade to the latest version at this point of time, whatever is known in terms of vulnerability and risk, we are safe from that.
Awesome, Saurabh. Thank you. Please continue with the presentation.
Sure. I think people are finding it useful and some nice questions over there. I guess more questions should follow. Feel free to ping Cynthia for the questions, and yeah, we will take them at the end of the session now. Okay, so we have talked a bit about security, Kubernetes, clusters, vulnerabilities, and all. I guess no one at this point of time resonates with this idea, right? It's like around what, 20 minutes into the session, and I guess no one feels like this, that no idea what's going on, what this guy's talking about in terms of security, right? So I hope so. No, No one in the audience feels like this, and that brings me to my next slides that we're going to talk about tools, right? So some tools which are good for Kubernetes security in general. So I have like a list of 10 tools, or I'll say security companies, which I've found pretty useful. Some of them are which I have used. Other is from recommendation from the industry experts. So people like you who have been using these tools and vouched for them, I thought of including them into my list. So without further delays, let's see that list. Okay, I think we can not do that. Yeah. So in case someone wants, you can take a screenshot or something for that. Anyways, the video would be recorded and shared with you, all of you, later on. So some of the tools are Kubebench, KubeHunter, Aqua, Anchor, Clear, StackRox. Those are basically the security companies over there. NewVector, Twistlock, KubeXray. So a couple of them could be open source. Others are all proprietary tools. You might have to shell out some money, but then yeah, that's not a big cost for securing your Kubernetes cluster, which is containing all production, non-prod, and all workloads over there, right? So this is not an exhaustive list. This is just a list that I got top of my mind, recommendations from friends like you. Coming to the bonus part, I think I still have some time, so I'll just try to cover that bonus part, and that's about DigitalOcean Kubernetes service, right? So yeah, you must choose, but choose wisely. What that means basically is, I'll not say Kubernetes shouldn't be implemented. Definitely, it's a pretty good tool, but I've spoken to a couple of customers, and they have this notion of everyone is using it, why shouldn't I? First of all, analyze your use case, your architecture, whether you need a container orchestrator tool like Kubernetes or not. If yes, then implement it wisely. That's all. Yes, and okay, every time I have to do that. So this one again talks about the same thing. Think for yourself, don't be a sheep. So normally what that means is don't follow the herd mentality that everyone else is doing it, and even I should implement Kubernetes. I mean, it's fancy, it's cool. No, nothing like that. First of all, it has its own learning curve, takes a lot of expertise to build around Kubernetes. If you have a team which is not into containers or Kubernetes kind of an ecosystem, it will take some time for them to learn. And since at last it's your production, your architecture, your company, you should take the final call, right? So think for yourself, no one else is going to do it. Oops. Okay, so I think this is something interesting for me. Won't take it too long, just want to run short. DigitalOcean, as a company, as you know, we are into cloud infrastructure services, and as recent as last year, last 2 quarters back, we came up with Kubernetes as an offering. So we do offer Kubernetes as a service out of the box. One of the benefits is you get a free master node. So master is free, you are not charged for that. You are only have to pay for the nodes that you spin up, and there are different plans that we will see going forward. So based on which plan you choose, what kind of machine you choose to make up the nodes, you will have a very simplified and transparent billing. So I thought of doing a demo, but since we're doing it from home, I was not sure of the internet issues, right, that I could face for a live demo. What I've done is I've just taken some screenshots, and I will guide you through them in next maybe a minute or so. So this is how typical Cloud Console looks when you log into a DigitalOcean console. So I assume that some of you might have used DigitalOcean Cloud Console or any other cloud console for sure. So yeah, this is my name. I have all the resources here, what all I can do. In case I've created some resources, I can manage it from here. And the beauty of DigitalOcean, I think, is the simplicity. The people who used it will vouch for it, right? So I have used a couple of other cloud providers, I think most of them. And I think you need to be an expert to use them. It kinds of adds complexity sometimes to use a different cloud resource. But in case you are a knave, you don't know much about cloud providers. For DigitalOcean, you don't have to be an expert. You just come here, you know what to do. You click on this green button that says create, right? And you'll get a list of resources. So what we are going to create at this point of time is a Kubernetes cluster. So yeah, it says create droplets, which is basically a virtual machines, databases, volumes, domains, firewalls, load balancers. No, I want to create a cluster. So I want to add a Kubernetes cluster. I choose that. I choose that, and I get this screen which says create a cluster. So it's very simple. Which version I want to use? So we support the latest and the prior to before that. So you'll see three list of versions of Kubernetes over here. So this is by default the latest one. You choose the version which you want to use for Kubernetes. You choose a data center. At this point of time, I'm based out of India. So for me, India data center would be good for a proximity location. We have one in Bangalore. So I'll choose Bangalore. I think so at this point of time, San Francisco is highlighted, but yeah, I can choose Bangalore. I can just click here and choose Bangalore. And what next? I have to choose cluster capacity. So which cluster I want to choose in terms of machine, right? Choose the right machine type. So as I said, master is free. We will take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to choose the right node, number of nodes and which node. So machine types, there are three different machine types at this point of time: standard, flexible, and CPU optimized. So someone who is looking for dedicated CPU intensive workloads can use CPU optimized. Otherwise, you can go with standard nodes. And based on what kind of machines you choose, you will have different node plans. So standard node starts from $10 a month. If I can show here, number of nodes, I use $10 into 3, which is 30. So I get a flat billing over here. It's all transparent. If I choose a different plan here, maybe next one is 20 into 3 is 60. So I think I have done this with standard. I also have chosen a optimized node. Let me try to show you that. So yeah, these are the plans for standard. These are the plans for optimized nodes. It starts with $40 a month. You're getting dedicated CPU optimized nodes at a higher price, right? Number of nodes into the plan, and that should be it. You choose that. You add your machine types, everything done. You add tags. So tags is basically to identify your cluster resources. So if you're using this for suppose a backend cluster or a front-end cluster or a database cluster, data analytics, you can add some kind of a tag so that you are easily able to identify this resource from a list of resources. By default, you get a name, but you can always alter that to something that you prefer in terms of nomenclature. And then, yeah, each resource, in this case, it's a Kubernetes cluster. It's a part of a project, right, at a high level. So select the project. So I had some old project selected there. You can always change that, whatever project you want to map this to. And it's as good as create a cluster. And that's it, you are done. It will take a couple of minutes because based on number of nodes, it has to spin up. And then it has to do a lot of networking behind the hoods. But typically it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And you should be able to see a Kubernetes cluster up and running. It's as simple as that when you use the managed Kubernetes from DigitalOcean. So that was more about DOKS or DigitalOcean Kubernetes Service as an offering. If you can see, it was pretty simple to select the resources, choose the machine type, you know the needs, create a cluster, and it should be done. Nothing complex over there when you are using it with us. And I think that kind of brings me to end of this session. Whatever information that I wanted to share with you all in terms of Kubernetes security, best practices, some of the tools recommended in the industry, and DigitalOcean Kubernetes Service, DOKS as we call it. Yeah, so one of the slides, as I said, it's just like 2 quarters that we have started using. We have like publicly offered this service, and we have some of the names over there who have been already using it. So OpenFast, if you know, it's a open source serverless project, right? They are using Kubernetes service. 10.7 variation, Ruby, Netta. So these are a couple of marquee names from US, and then yeah, people across the globe, customers across the globe have started using our Kubernetes service. And as in the starting, Cynthia mentioned about Kubernetes, DigitalOcean as a company, we take a lot about community in terms of pride, right? We have 3.5 million people at this point of time. So there's certain links that I would like to share with all of you. So these are DigitalOcean resources. In case you want to watch some of the webinars, including this one, this is a link to go for. We encourage people to write tutorials for us, and it's called a write for donations. Whatever amount that we pay you, we pay an equal amount to charity that goes to the charity. If you have any specific questions around DigitalOcean platform, this is the link to use. I think this is something which some of you would have already used tutorials, right? Anything around DigitalOcean or in general around tech world should be available here. And then community doers, people who do they belong to the community and do something for us. We call them as DO doers basically. So these are the links that can be useful for us, for you, in case you are interested in one of those activities. So I think that's all good. In case you want to catch up with me, I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm available on DigitalOcean platform. So that's my email. That's my Twitter handle. And thanks a lot for being a lovely audience and being patient. I'm open to other questions in case people have that, or we can take them later at the end of the session.
Saurabh, there are a few more questions, but then we'll take them at the end of the session. Let's move on to Arvin. Saurabh, request you to share the presenter access to him, please.
Sure, I'll do that. So I'll pass on my access to Arvin now, and definitely a session that is going to be worth for it. I'm eagerly waiting for Arvin to share some of the best practices around SIEM. Over to you, Arvind. Okay, I need to see.
Okay. I think you should be able to see my screen. Great.
Yes, Arvind, we can see the screen.
Great. So today we'll discuss more about SIM and a bit of APM. Actually, not very deep into the like more detailed topics like EDR or security in specific. But that's a really great session from you, Saurabh. Like I really enjoyed it. There is a lot of Kubernetes knowledge and CV knowledge that you have shared, which I really don't know regarding the logging vulnerability, etc. So which is interesting. So quickly getting into the session today. Like, hello, I'm Arvind, and I work at Elastic as a developer advocate, part of Kubernetes community, and also we have a SIG called Contributor Experience. Please join it. Please come to the meetings. This helps you to do your first. If you are not an open source contributor, we recommend. I mean, we help you to do your first contribution towards Kubernetes or a lot of things around Kubernetes. So SIG Contributor is a wonderful one to look at. But then, like, I'm always available on Twitter. You can DM me for any other questions regarding Kubernetes, Elasticsearch, Elk Stack, security, whatnot. So basically, a bit of intro about what is this technical stack and what it really does. Because for some people who are quite new to this technology, I just want to give a eagle-eye view of what we really do. So Elastic is a search company. Elasticsearch is a world's popular search engine. So what are use cases that you might see useful for Elastic is basically if you are using Uber, of course, like not right now. If you are using Uber, Ola, Grab, Gojek, or all these companies, they use they are ride-sharing companies, right? So basically, they have a point A to point B, and then you book a cab and you get it, and then you board and you go to the destination that you have wanted to go, right? So the pairing of the rider and the driver happens on Elasticsearch. The search request is sent to an Elasticsearch server where the search happens, and like it gives you this rider driving pairing so that like you can do all of that. Similarly, if you are using Zomato, Swiggy, again, not at this point of time, but if you are still using something like this Big Basket or say Grofers or all of these grocery apps and searching for your favorite vegetables or much needed essential items, you are literally searching on Elasticsearch because it helps you to search your favorite dishes, favorite you know, whatnot, like a lot of filters and a lot of search related things. So either you are searching for all of these restaurants, you're searching for love on Tinder, if you are searching for your logs, you're searching for threads, a lot of use cases people use Elastic Stack or Elk Stack for. So today we're going to discuss more one particular topic of it, probably new and very less, I mean, like maybe many people except in the security community might not be using, but if you're an app developer, you might really be also interested in this particular area. So basically we do three things: search, observe, protect. Like I said, three solutions. Elastic Enterprise Search, which is something like, you know, the workplace search, app search, and site search, wherein all things search, anything that you have to do with search, you can simply use it. You can just all types of data sources, be it your e-commerce type of search engine, restaurants, or your Jira data, GitHub data, G Drive data, where you want to search documents. So all of them can be easily done. Similarly, at the same point of time, you have Elastic Observability, where a lot many people in the DevOps ecosystem use Elasticsearch for ingesting logs, ingesting metrics, ingesting APM traces, which is another interesting API open source projects, in just the pings, like the uptime, the service level availability metrics of their own site, etc. So here, if you see, we are trying to bring in a unified visibility model across your infrastructure, so which is nothing but your the observability standard. Like there are many standards in observability, so we encapsulate and collate all of that. So at the same time, today the most important topic is like Elastic security. So we also do Elastic endpoints, like your regular antivirus engines, etc. And also like you have SIM, which is like a data collection and log collection tool. I'll talk more and go deep into SIM. So basically, SIM is like more interesting for a lot of people in the infosec world, but also like it helps a lot of app developers, so that you could go and look at each one of these. So all of this is from a basic common stack called Elastic Stack, where Elasticsearch is a distributed NoSQL storage-based search engine. Then you have Kibana on top of it, which is a visualizer that helps you to look at all of this. Then you have Beats and Logstash, which are ingest modules, which helps you to ingest the data. So, but all these stack, I mean, the stack or the solutions can be deployed anywhere. It is platform agnostic, cloud agnostic. You can deploy on a DigitalOcean suite, or you can deploy on something like Kubernetes. Talking about Kubernetes, we also have a Kubernetes operator through which you will be able to like manage, orchestrate, and like set up, do upgrades, create new solutions, and run it as it like a single whole large cluster without any hassle. So we also, this is again open source, so that you can go and deploy it on Kubernetes and like simply start working all of this, and everything is like perfectly automated. If you know about operator technology on Kubernetes, like the framework, it is pretty easy. Other than, we also have a very good quick start guides to get started with it. But then, like, let's quickly come to the SIM part. Like, what is SIM? And like I keep telling that if you're an app developer, probably might not have heard about what people in the security, like the security team, like security operation command center, SOC team of your company, or like the infosec team of your company, what they specially do. But basically, SIM is very simple in terms of what people look at. But by implementation, it can really get complex, because it's at an organizational level. It protects a lot of brand. So say that you have an enterprise internet application, like a SaaS, nowadays called software as a service, right? So suppose something that you want to provide as a service, say a restaurant engine, or something like a e-commerce website that you have on the public internet, wherein you have a ton of things moving around, like a database. There is a block storage engine wherein you store all the logs for the cold storage, or there are RDBMS systems wherein you use it for specific table or relational data management. So each thing for different use cases. But then, like, you can always have something like the users definitely interact with the application using the internet, and use their credentials and try to log in and try to look at consume your service. But at the same time, there is a good chance that there might be also an attacker, a person who might be very interested in extracting or taking away information from you. So in a traditional world, you might think, like, if you are an app dev, you might be thinking like, see, okay, then I have a very tighter, tougher policy of security policy, and then everything will be safeguarded. Ideally, it really works out that way only. If you can have a very good security policy, you can have very good threat model, and reduce your surface, your exposure towards the public internet, and also safeguard yourself and your organizational brand. But at some point of time, the attackers are also very intelligent, and they come up with a mask, like a regular user, and they try to sniff out and find out vulnerabilities, like what Saurabh was saying, and like try to extrapolate information, and like try to leverage them to get more data, get access, like someone who comes like a user becomes an admin, right, and can literally shut down your machine, literally steal the data and clear the data, delete the data in your swipe away your data in your database. So how do you stop all of this? How do you control all of this? So that is where your SIM can look at like a preventing or a detecting technology, not exactly a preventing technology. like a protect technology. Your SIM is like your prevention or detection, where it gives you a bird's eye view of entire thing that's happening in your ecosystem, like in your entire infrastructure paradigm. So also there are SIM specific compliance standards where people literally need to follow. Like DigitalOcean might be having a SOC type 3 or SOC type 2, different type of compliances where InfoSec team evaluates when you put on a specific cloud vendor or specific data center or specific application is being exposed. So it's a very common practice. But now what's happening is the attack surface is increasing, wherein when you are doing more and more SaaS or into public internet applications, the application developer also needs to know what are the various things. And this is being there from quite some time as well. I'll talk about that specific app dev use cases where we can use him. So talking about more details, like what are the security data sources? Like suppose if you are using Okta or Oracle's IDM kind of tools, like SSOs, right, provided by various software vendors, you might literally use a host of sources where you can collect data from auth logs, different of cache logs that are generated when people are accessing things. You can also use threat intels, so whether a user authenticates from an IP, you can check whether this IP subnet is secure or not, whether IP subnet is like what giving access to further, or should I block them, or if you have something like whether a specific file should be stopped from executing or it should be continued. So these are like threat intels that comes from external context. So that is there. Then you also have incident response, and there are many workflows automation systems like ServiceNow. Each one does a specific thing, and they also play a vital role. When an incident has been raised, how do you analyze the logs? How do you go and look at the logs? So what we are talking here about is like a lot of community as well. So if you see, there is a community part here wherein tools like Security Onion, which again is based on Elasticstack ELK. So you have Help, HELK, you have Whisperer, Vulnmod, Cape Stack, SoftElk, and then you have many of these interesting software community. You have Wazoo, which is also very famous web application firewall, and a lot of data source content collected. So all of these partners, like all of these players produce logs, and people try to collect into a centralized repository and try to do interesting threat hunting analytics. So talking about this threat hunting analytics, so what people would look into this particular thing, like what are the like I said, what are the things that people know to further find out whether the person is or a user is a attacker or a hacker or a regular user, or what are the techniques that they need to find out and trace back to a common root cause. So if you see here, there's something like known knowns, wherein like something is there out in the wild and you protect for it, like creating a threshold alert, creating an if else conditional loop, so that you can find out if that happens, you just simply trigger alert. That's where you're gonna monitor. Then there is also a chance like where you have known unknowns, wherein you know that, but you can't find out because you are finding out a needle in a haystack. Like it's a lot of data. How do you really find out whether that particular incident is the point of the start of this entire program, like, right? So anomaly detection or something like a machine learning model can really help you to find out that anomalies that are occurring once in a while but not really visible to your human eye, or like you can't really go and analyze or keep looking at these triggers because there are more alerts, more noise, you will not be able to look into that. Then you also have unknowns, like there are a lot of unknowns in the security community, and there are a lot of things that keep happening. Like say just OpenSSL, if you monitor the last 5 years, there are a lot of vulnerabilities. People are disclosing more and more, but then OpenSSL is one such great library that you can't replace it with anything. It's so interesting and so amazing. It solves a lot of mission critical problems, but then you can't expose of vulnerabilities, right? So there are many things like that. So how do you do that? You definitely need to have a strong search tool through which you can find out that needle in a haystack and pinpoint and say that, okay, this is a needle that I want to remove off, and this is what is causing problem every time when I'm going to upgrade my infrastructure or do something around. So that is one another thing to look at. So like I said, multiple use, and with the increase of infrastructure, with the increase of internet of technology, suppose I've been seeing people in the interest of like increasing the experience for the the remote working nature. So this is something like there are more and more threat surfaces that are getting exposed. So multiple areas, multiple platforms, multiple things. So what we have done, we as Elastic, so we've been hearing from the community, more interestingly the security community, wherein they want to literally have something on security for Elastic. So basically we have done a free and open SIM, which is free and which is completely usable to all the security community. So we have done quite a bit of interesting work here, like having timelines and all. I'll walk through some major important features or major things, how you get started. So what we also have come up with another open source a project called Elastic Common Schema, where there are several partners like Cisco and Palo Alto, where they have a lot of security infrastructure. So what they ship and sell a lot of security infrastructure. So basically what we do here is like bring in everything into a common data schema, like say anything literally, like you say, be it your observability data, be your app dev data, be it your application data. We try to prune it, everything into a common structure, and then like you could do cross correlation, or you could do correlation between multiple data sets. You can do pinpoint, overlay one data set on another data set. This is not a tool, this is a policy, this is a standard compliance practice. You could go and find out some of your interesting software or tools as well. You can do that as well. So at the same point of time, you also have different sort of host and data sources. Like we have multiple beats. So beats the data shipper through which you will be able to ship logs. So there are multiple modules. Say OS query is one such interesting module through which you will be able to ship out data. Then you also have IDS, IPS, NMS, network management systems logs as well. You can collect flows from them. You can collect TCP, UDP flows. These are, or you can also have cloud flows as well. If you are looking at VPC flow, how the network is being flown between different VPCs. We have a DigitalOcean cloud module as well, different clouds. If you have data between different clouds, you can do that as well. At the same time, the SIM app has, like I said, the threat hunting. So you could also like do specific user analysis. You could do drag and drop filtering of your auths and more stuff like that. So I'll quickly go around, like because in the interest of time, I'll quickly go around the demo part and show you some screens, and then I can quickly take out you. So Kibana is now in dark mode as well, so wherein you see a lot of interesting colors here. So this is the same app, and wherein you have multiple apps here. This is gonna get redrawn, so there are multiple apps. I know that there is a lot of things happening, so we want to unify into the 3 solutions that I spoke about. So it's gonna come in very soon. At the same point, you see RSS feed of security news. We are also working on, if you have a favorite security news you are consuming to, like say the CV like news that is going to happen, we are looking at trying to bring out a lot of security news here. Then you also have the signal count. Signal says like what's happening, like how many things are executing, how many things are getting exfiltrated, etc. Event count, like a lot of details, like endpoint security count, and more details. So what I'll quickly show you is the detections part, where detections is quite interesting. I have a tab open in the interest of time, and I also have the tag selected here. So basically, if you see here, these are the rules that you have for kind of like detecting the unusual activity that is happening on your system. So more specifically, if you're app dev, and if you're somebody who has a web application running in, say, Kubernetes, right? And suppose if you want to detect a specific attack, say think of like OWASP rules, like we are bringing all of that as well. So think of that, and then you would simply be able to detect that if somebody is trying to run a specific scan, or doing port scan, or doing something like something fishy, right? You will be able to do it. This is one such specific rules. We have a ton of rules regarding the same. I'm only focusing on the APM data, the rules that you could apply on your traces. Like say there is no user agent, like people are not accessing it from a browser, they're accessing it from a command line or a bot. They're trying to bombard you with a lot of user requests. So that is one another thing. Or you have a SQL map agent. So multiple use cases. all of this translate into something. You also can look at the network, how the network is flowing on between the data. Like say if you have that the application is currently deployed in a specific data center in Europe, and then the data is flown, the data is being shown to multiple areas. Like you also have India here. I'm accessing it from Bangalore, so you could see some places this is being like done here. So there are multiple ways you can visualize this data. We are trying to like put in more and more effort to show more interesting data as the time passes. So everything that I've shown here is free and open. You can simply deploy and use all the data sources and collect and collate and do analytics as well on any other platform. So in the interest of time, again, I'll come back to the demo and I'll show you some resources so that you can go and look at, and then we'll quickly take some questions. So if you want to access more resources, find out details, like this is the URL. This slides will be posted, and you will also get the recording, so you can take a note of it, or you can take a screenshot, right? SIEM-APM. This is the specific thing. Then if you are looking at starting a trial, on getting started at trial with all of these, so you could go and look into this. This gives a specific trial other than the regular trial that you have on the website elastic.co, but this is a more specific for the community. Then other than that, if you want to reach me out, or if you have more questions, you could definitely write to discuss.elastic.co, which is our technical forum through which you'll be able to ask questions and get answers from the Elastic and the community as well. We answer them, actually the community team answers them. I have my email ID here. You can also mail me at the email ID. So that being said, that's the end of the session, and if you have more questions, I'm happy to open the floor, and like me and Saurabh can take questions.
Thank you so much, Arvind. Am I loud and clear?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Saurabh. If you can also come up, please. We have a couple of questions for you. So quickly, we'll move on to the Q&A session in the interest of time. First question for you, Arvind, is the question is on Elastic security. Can Elastic Endpoint Agent be used as alternatives for real-time EDR, like CrowdStrike or McAfee? To be specific, does ELK Endpoint have EDR ability, or is it just signature-based detection systems only?
No, it has EDR capability. It has EDR capability. That is a special thing, that EDR data is also coming to the same. So it's one endpoint which does all of this, and it has all the capabilities. It also has a zero-day attack, that or the threat intelligence attack. Yeah. So, and again, it is not just DAT driven. It's not DAT based engine. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. There was one more question from the same person for you, Arvind. Does Elastic Beats support major log sources to ingest? Do we have any option for customizing Beats to ingest our own internal product logs?
Yes, 100%. You can, first of all, I'll answer the, it can ingest any type of log. First of all, you can use FileBeat and just give your file path, say your any custom organization specific log, it simply ingests that. That is definitely there. But if you want, say like you have a specific IDM or specific sort of a security product that you're using, and you want to get the data from that particular product and like ingest into Elasticstack, we have something called modules. So we support roughly like 70 or 80 odd modules, different types of data sources from the, and most of them also like a security community from the security area. We also have integrations with ArcSight and NetFlow. So if you are into that as well, you can get that. So McAfee is like all regular endpoint protections, are data is covered by default.
All right, thank you, Arvind. This question is for you, Saurabh. Should we choose a self-managed Kubernetes, or managed Kubernetes from a cloud provider is better?
Sure, I think that's a pretty nice question, but something that you have to take a call in terms of if you are a small agile team with not an in-house expertise around Kubernetes and containers, I think managed Kubernetes is a way to go. But in case you are a large organization and you have big pockets where you can have a dedicated DevOps team to work on Kubernetes, yeah, you can have your own self-hosted Kubernetes.
Awesome. There have been repetitive questions on tools, Saurabh. I think you've already covered the tools for the Kubernetes cluster, right?
Yeah, I've shared that list, but in case there's further questions around the same line, I can take them offline and I can reply them back.
Yeah, given the interest of time, actually, we've got a lot more questions, Arvind and Saurabh, but I think we will answer them by email probably next week because we're already on dot 5. So if you can just move on to the next slide for me, Arvind.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Arvind. Kudos to you and Saurabh for having taken time to join from home. Thanks to all our community members for having taken time to register and join. A hearty thanks from all of us. I've just shown some social media links here so that they can follow DigitalOcean accounts on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's so that you can get to know about when our next webinar is, when our meetup is. If you have any specific topics in mind that you would want us to cover on a meetup or a webinar, please write to crajan@digitalocean.com email address. We'll be happy to address it for you. I've also got another specific question from a number of you asking if we provide any credits for you to learn and explore the product of DigitalOcean. Of course, here's a link which is exclusive only for the Kubernetes meetup attendees. So please use this link that you can see on the screen, do.co/Kubernetes meetup. This is a $100 free credit link for all of you to explore the product. Once again, thanks to Elastic and DigitalOcean coming together to present this online meetup, and for your patience to listen to us for the past 60 minutes. This is Cynthia, Saurabh, and Arvind signing off. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe, and stay indoors.
Stay home, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.